Good afternoon. It's Sunday, and we've had wall-to-wall talk shows about virtually nothing else but Trump. And there are other issues in the country. And this is another disability of that Trump is anywhere on the scoreboard, either as a candidate, as a defendant, as a past president, as anything. And I missed those days after Biden was elected in which we didn't have to think about Trump. That is after the impeachment proceedings. And the impeachment proceedings were disastrous in the sense that they didn't bring to justice the criminal who had tried to overthrow our government and install himself as the rightly elected, though wrongfully obtained, president. He misled America about the fraud that he claimed there was when there wasn't any. And they invoked theories of law that just weren't supported by the law, the plain meaning of the words, history, in any regard. And so we're still suffering from that. And the principal argument that Trump is making now that he's been indicted in a multi-count felony indictment is that we're interfering in his election. After he interfered in the election generally and then tried to overthrow it with lies and miscalculations. And the people who stand by him today are all these, corrupt individuals. I don't know how you could be a Republican and say the things they're saying in defense of Trump. I suppose even if they were silent and supported him by their silence, this would be an error in public service, it seems to me. And those who've spoken out, who may have mixed motives, I support them, and I think that they're right to say so. And Christie, I don't know, I guess he's in a revenge mode, but he is saying the right things about Trump. And so the content is right, even if the motivation is mixed. On the stump last night, Trump was talking about his defenses for what's going on. And he says, it's really, they should have looked at the Presidential Records Act, which is anything that is either created or received by the president can fit in the Presidential Records Act. These are not necessarily classified materials. In fact, they're contemplated generally as not classified. But here's the thing that Trump always leaves out. This provision runs out when he leaves the White House. Then all those records go to the archives, and there can be negotiations back and forth about how they can be used, but none of that happened. So even the Presidential Records Act that he's saying on the stump has got nothing to do with his gossamer thin defense. So, and what is this about the Espionage Act? We've had No Jacket Jordan and Lindsey Graham on the air, screaming and shouting, spreading lies and falsehoods. But consider the Espionage Act. Graham said something like, espionage, this isn't espionage. How can they even use the term espionage? Well, the Espionage Act is about defense-related documents. And in the case of Trump, we don't have to be hypothetical about it. Of the documents that were identified, they talk about the plans of other countries to wage wars, approaches we may make to people. There's discussions about nuclear arms in these documents. And we know this because of the general description that presumably has been cleared by the intelligence agencies so that we can have enough specifics in the indictment so we can know what we're talking about. So these documents are not of the sort that fit in the Presidential Records Act. They fit in the Espionage Act. Well, isn't espionage about spying? Well, the name of the act isn't as much about spying as it is about the element of spying, which is that one is holding on to defense-related documents and or doing worse things, distributing them and so forth. Now, we have incidents that are taped in which, on at least two occasions, it puts the documents in the hand, that is, these related to Defense Act documents, in the hands of our boy, Trump, while others are present, and you can hear the rifling of the papers, and they marvel over them. And also, he reviews a map which shows those important moments and points that relate to actions on the ground, perhaps in a war game. So these things are plainly within the Espionage Act. And this man, by his ardor for money, for power, to get back at people, or just the idle notion that, hey, look at what I have, you know. Better that he, as a kid, shared his skinned knee with somebody, that he take the secrets of America and put them in toilets, that is in bathrooms, on stages and so forth, when 300 people are going through the facility and they're totally unprotected and therefore dangerous to the national security. But this man doesn't care. He only has his own objectives in mind. Either that he entertains somebody for a book review, or that he perhaps move these things along and receive funds for it. So he is not protecting us. He is in fact putting us at risk, and we do not know how much, and some people may know what assets have been put at risk by whatever he's done with these materials. Now, what are the Republicans' reaction to this? The Republicans' reaction is, oh, he's the victim. How could you do this? Other people weren't prosecuted. Well, you know, Hillary was investigated, cleared. Then they opened the investigation again. Then she was cleared again 2 days before her election. That's her history. Hunter Biden is still being investigated. The president and his records still being investigated. So this is not about what about others, because if they committed an offense, they'll be prosecuted, or they should be. And whatever failure may apply to any other person doesn't apply to Trump, because we have the goods. As I've heard hosts say, and I've learned to say, we got the receipts. Just read this indictment. Read the indictment. The Republicans, if they've read it, choose to ignore it, to pretend it doesn't exist, because they figure if they lie to America, America's not going to read it either, or not their supporters. I looked up a study. It turns out that Democrats and independents read more books than do Republicans. So maybe we have an edge when we go to vote. And right now, these people who don't read, I mean, they may be the edge of the sword, edge of the spear, tip of the spear. So, but what else are the Republicans doing? They've moved from reason, rational discourse, to threats like Lake out of Arizona, a woman who couldn't be governor, and is talking about how her election, just like Trump's, was compromised. And she's telling the world they'll have to go through me to get to Trump. Well, I actually don't think that would be that difficult, but she said it, so there it is. And she wants us all to know that she belongs to the National Rifle Association, and they're all waiting there. And I saw one woman responded, I'm a member of the PTA. And take that. And she talks as if there's 70 million people all lined up in the NRA with guns ready to mount the barriers and save Trump next Tuesday. By the way, she's going to Florida next Tuesday to be president. And, well, she's a piece of work. What can I say? But she is basically threatening America when there's only, 5 million NRA members. And I wouldn't presume that they're a majority political, or that they have decided they're on Trump's side. But I do think he has a strong base, but not a majority. He has a minority of these deplorables who don't want to read and just listen to what these people say and repeat it without knowing anything. Ignorance abounds. Jefferson said, a nation that expects to be ignorant and free expects what never was and never will be. Exemplar gratia, that's EG period. This is something that I remember from geometry. Whenever you did something, that would pop up in quod erat demonstrandum, what has been demonstrated. Well, what we've demonstrated is the Republicans don't give a damn about America. They don't give a damn about the truth. They don't give a damn about you or me. All they want is the power. And they want this witless autocrat to be in the White House and pardon himself and all those people who were responsible for the insurrection. And if such a thing should come to pass, that would be the end of America. That would be the failure of this still young experiment in democracy. That would be the end of the republic that Benjamin Franklin said we had if we could keep it. This is a test of our origin as a nation, of our conduct as a civilization, as a peace-loving people who are of and belonging to the values first stated in the Declaration of Independence and our Constitution and its amendments to that Constitution. We heard No Jacket Jordan speaking faster than his mind could travel, and we heard Lindsey Graham bordering on tears, saying the convenient thing, as he always does, to the position he's taking in the moment. And we're going to see a lot of that. And we're going to go to court next Tuesday, and we're going to deal with a judge that has no business trying this case. She's already told us that she thinks the president is more important than some provisions that were applied as a result of the search warrant. So we're on notice that a motion for her to recuse herself either immediately or when she does her first meandering off the normal course of what's due process, which is basically fair proceedings. So that's what I got today. It's really kind of hot out today, in the 80s. And so I say goodbye to you from my cathedral of trees with the hope that reason wills out over the witchery of Trump and company. Bye-bye.